and there's a heaven on the earth. But there's a heaven on the heaven. So earth is in heaven in the sense. Really not, but we're not universal. We need to be more conscious of reality.
Sorry for keeping you. Yes, and that's my food. And that's my food. Sorry for keeping you. I was wondering what this was.
You're sticking to the race or the whole nation.
Where are you off to? Oh, you're going back to... I'm going home. Yeah, I just collapsed it and it becomes small.
The doctor is getting bolder and stronger. You know, the young lady that goes over and holds me, talks about Muhammad. She's getting bolder and stronger.
Don't do it when I'm out. That would be It's calling God in it because what's your name? My name is Rashid. Hey, you sent me everything you have, Brian.
What? You haven't made a head.
I'm going to make them mature. I'll tell you. Tell him. I'll tell you. Tell him just what? I'll tell you. No, I will tell you. I listen to you. You have to listen to what? Did he prophesize or not?
So when I punch you in your face, yeah, this way they were telling them
Which type of Bible do you I don't mind the statement sounds right.
Tell her where you're saying. Tell me you're saying.
You asked the person writing on the gospel. I'm talking about the person.
He's still fine here nowadays.
By the time the party, there was a party war to war.
rubbish. I don't think it's rubbish to stand here and you were not trying to submit it to a job.
We're not talking about some grand religious theme.
Let's have a little chat. That's all going on with Bob over there.
I feel a lot of
Oh, the guy that like
I would contact the party. I can't not say that.
Good on you, I respect that.
But then again, I mean, the Conservative Party, it was Cameron who gave us homosexual marriage, not Blair.
And it was Enoch Powell.
It was a liberal bill, though.
Enoch Powell was helping us when abortion first began. They weren't legalising when abortion was first introduced as a medical procedure. Birth control in schools. That was all under Enoch Powell.
Okay, right. So how do you do if the fetus is ensouled, so it's fully human, you're dealing with two different human beings. Which do you say? I guess you take a practical view. You try to say both human.
If I know the baby is going to die,
I hate him more than you do.
I don't hate him.
But you hate me.
خلي ندور عليه.
هذا كاريك
أنا مشكلة أنا باي. क्या बनता है? अरे बोर्ड
You said that the hadith, everything, Muslim tradition, everything, the Sharia law, everything comes.
Male God of Muhammad.
Including the Sharia. None of the church fathers' tradition is where my everything that
shower, come.
Don't talk about. So the problem here is that he's saying to me, well, you got two hadiths that are saying all this. I don't believe it. If it contradicts the Quran, I don't believe it. I'm like, picking and choosing something like this, where I'm not quoting us Da'if hadith, I'm quoting us Sahih hadith. It's al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. So if I'm quoting something like that and you say, oh, if it's not even that it's contradicting the Quran. The thing is, the Quran doesn't mention it. The Quran doesn't say anything about Jibreel cleaning Muhammad's heart or not. It doesn't say anything. So that means that that topic is not like it's contradicting. So can you please help me out, because he keeps repeating and then he wastes my time. So do you understand? I'm trying to have a
I was aware of the one where I wasn't aware of the second. My understanding to this two hadith is that the first time is to make him not to live like childish when he play, because he wants to prepare for what's going to come later from young age. The second time, I believe it was to prepare him for the Quran.
The problem is that is your interpretation, but when you read it, okay, that's fine. I understand what you're saying. But when I read it, it says Allah asked him to clean his heart out from the shaitan's share.
Yes.
But you said that he cleaned him out so he doesn't get a desire to play with other boys. Playing with other boys is not a satanic thing. Allah would not take a boy's childhood away from him. That would be a very cruel thing to do. Like if you were a child and you were not allowed to play with the boys, that would be a very cruel thing for you, wouldn't it? And if your Allah did it to you, that's even worse. However, the Quran, the verse in here, in the Hadith, is not saying anything like that. That it has anything to do with his childhood or anything.
Muhammad, in his childhood, he didn't have a normal childhood.
Well, here he seems to be, in this verse, he was playing with the boys in the
That was
street.
before, yes, but after that, he didn't really have a normal childhood.
I guess not.
He didn't think like a child when he was a child. He was more serious. He was more serious into looking at
not like the
things
other
in life,
children.
like not having his mother, not having his father, not having family.
Okay.
You know, he didn't have time to play.
So he became more serious about godly things, right?
Yeah,
Is that more
God didn't want him to play as a child. He wanted him to think about questions, serious questions in life.
Okay.
Maybe that will lead him eventually
to God.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. If that was the case, then why does the Quran say you did not have faith or you did not know anything about the faith before we made your
I know you're worried.
Yeah.
Go, you can be a businessman.
In that time, Jesus was
God, the Father, before the Son, was the Holy Spirit.
That's where we are. We're asking, what would satisfy you? You're asking, what would say? Is there manuscript? Let me show you manuscript. Hold on. Give me your manuscript. Let me finish
Have you got no respect for yourself?
No. So why did Mohammed say go and drink?
Well, I guess it is a sometimes I say things that I don't mean.
Okay.
Right? I'm here to forgive.
Okay, yeah, no worries, no worries.
Not at all.
So,
It's in the word.
I mean, I was gonna say, like,
So when I refer to people,
is Jesus God?
That's again, what those documents say, those New Testament documents, they say he is God.
I receive you say this question.
And because of those documents, as historical documents, I accept that he's God.
So it's faith in the document.
Yeah, that's the first thing. You've got to have the documents, because if I was just to be from the air, from the ether, deciding I think Jesus is God, that's just stupid. I've got to have something that goes right back 2,000 years ago. Because he was here 2,000 years ago.
Okay, so the document. Okay. So the problem with the document is the gospel in particular, they were released into circulation
All the way up and
during the middle of the war.
Christ,
The
because Christ
Romans
is
were,
God.
it was basically a first century Holocaust.
So anyone that was saved in the past is
according
still
to
saved
contemporary
through Christ's sacrifice,
historical
even if they did
sources.
not know.
Hundreds of thousands of Jews died in Jerusalem, even in Galilee.
and anyone who is in need of Christ
Hundreds of
in the
thousands of
future
people were dying.
and
Jews were killing Jews. And I'm not even to mention they were killing each other because they were scared that they were going to be
If they're saved, essentially put your faith in Christ. In the past, if you put your faith in God, once upon
She doesn't like this. She doesn't want to argue with them.
You don't understand. He kept coming up with, oh, he was the one, so then he took him out. The whispering of
For example, the word of your Lord has been completed, like he says, in truth and justice. There is nothing changing to his word. He is the hearer and the knower.
Did he say that? Why didn't he say that? Because he said that that's what he did.
Oh, he is the word. Mankind was a single community. They differ, where it's not for a the Muslim was not the problem.
Yeah, but if Jesus Christ is the word of Allah, then
that's what. Wait, don't you see how God presents a parable? Word like Jesus is like a good tree. Its rooted is firm, and its branches are in heaven, in the sky.
you sound as if you're proving that Jesus is the word of Allah.
He is the word of Allah.
So the word of Allah.
And then in your word of Allah.
Who said he is the word? He is the word of Allah. Like I'm a president, I want to say a word, I put it on a cassette, on a CD, and I put the CD inside your body. You are the word of God. You are the
So you see.
The word of God,
But the word of
is
God,
in Jesus' body.
But the word of God came from Allah.
Of course. Where's it going to come from then?
But what comes from Allah is uncreated.
It's Allah.
You don't think like the rest of us. You and Saeed, you got your own mind. Huh? Have you read his notes? I mean, Saeed,
Come tell me what he is.
not all there.
How will you issue a fatwa that comes without a
No problem. Show me the verse.
You're not getting what I'm saying. I'm saying when people are making a fatwa, they refer to the exactly. You're not listening to me. You're not listening to me. So if a judge has to take a ruling, where will he take a ruling? It's not from his mind. He has to go to the law. Now, if the Muslim is issuing a fatwa, if he has the legal authority to do it, he has to go to the hadith or he has to go to the Quran. Both. Of course he does the law based on hadith. Let me bring you some fatwa based on hadith. Some examples later on, and you can see it yourself.
Wait. Have you read the Quran? To avoid the main question, to avoid the question, did Jesus die? We're now going back to the science.
That's your best friend.
Why is the Quran today not used? Have you seen the Red story? Have you found ancient texts?
That's why you have division. You see, they're all
How old do you think the gap of us?
You know why we never have a conversation?
What's the gap?
I'm telling you, go and do some research, go and do some biblical.
Okay, is there a gap? Is there a gap?
You can see this in Bible. They have the Bible. They have the same religion.
You say orally?
Physically, it was written down by Moses.
That were around by it's called the law on it's called the law of things you I don't you just switch it back Joshua.
You want to answer this question?
Stop! Is that the meaning?
Chapter.
I can find better from the
My understanding is that Eve is an emergent property of the material world. There is no sense in Zarathustra's teaching as the antithesis of the God. There is an aspect, these are more conceptual ideas, so the evil force or evil being is menu means mentality, beings, a person, is a way of thinking.
Right now,
That's what I was going to talk about.
I can get a Jew right now.
You said something, sorry. Oh, we're good. I'm like, you know,
So you're so this is maybe Christians are on the same stuff. Why
Arrow. He said that the Quran is that is complete. Deuteronomy chapter 21 verse 10. So everyone here, you want me to recite?
I was born in
And that's a member here. I mean, there are no members. Or you wouldn't know yourself. You have no idea. You have a reasonable idea of combatant and non-combatant. You can't tell duly combatant.
Yeah.
Mustafa, I may vote for you.
Well, hopefully.
Think about it.
You vote Ryan Hastings. I'll have a think. God bless you.
Okay, so is it possible so this guilt is part of the bad act, ultimately bad, right? Because the good is desirable consciousness, bad is undesirable
But remember, in the Western world, we've developed because of the development of the development of the priesthood, the launching out of creating the monasteries amongst the pagan European. The pagans of Northern Europe, I mean, the Vikings would come to England and they would take a king or prince and they cut him open
and they take his heart out and his lungs, and they place them on top of his chest, and then leave as a warning. They couldn't care less about killing people. The Aztecs, they would butcher tens of thousands of people just to offer to their demon god.
Yeah, but
before the Spanish came.
The prince has consciousness.
Yeah, so, but ordinary people, what I'm trying to get at is the idea of what is evil, what is bad, varies from society to society, and we have a particular view.
So there's varying levels of understanding of what is truly good and what is truly bad. Right? But ultimately there is a good and ultimately there is a bad.
Yes.
And different people can have different approximations to that ultimate reality of, depending on whatever instance, what it is, what that instance is an example of.
Yeah, we Catholics will say that's absolutely true, that's the way it goes, and St. Paul pretty much says of the truth, but it's been distorted. So that would conform with our general view of the world.
Well, the Catholic Church may have given some specific absolute truth, but that doesn't mean that everything that the Catholic Church has released into the world is absolute truth.
We don't say that. We say that when we give our moral teachings, those are the absolute truth. But when we say taking a measure, because we believe in the importance of the state and the prince and the church is
a hierarchy, just like in the animal kingdom.
Oh yeah, we believe in a hierarchy in nations, and we also believe in the church's duty to guide the prince and to guide society generally in moral teachings. But we will support things which at other times we might not support. It depends on the time, and sometimes we'll say, oh well, maybe we shouldn't have done this. So for example, when we burnt any prince in general, but the idea is as a ruler, as a secular ruler, secular Catholic ruler, not necessarily Catholic, but ideally a Catholic ruler, and he will do things which we will give support to. It depends on the circumstances, but we might look back and say, well, we shouldn't have done that. You see, punishments that we have supported at different times, we could say yes, they were right, or we might say no, we shouldn't have supported those punishments. Like say burning Protestants at the stake for heresy. That could be disagreed with, because that, we might say in 2023, was not the right way to go. But, so there's all kinds of things that we do which we don't say are right, and have done which we don't say are right. But when we're talking about the moral law itself, the moral law comes from God in the Old Testament, is perfected by Christ, and then is spread to the whole human race by his church, which I say is the Catholic Church. And that's how mankind becomes fully enlightened, but can't be fully enlightened by anything other than the Catholic Church, because they've got distortions.
Well, okay, so back to good and bad. I was just trying to say bad actions to the thing. Really, ultimately there's guilt. So, is it possible to transfer guilt from one individual to another individual that's being sacrificed? Like a goat.
I see. Okay. Like.
The polar opposite of what he was taught.
God, though. Okay, I'll give you.
He was the sacrifice.
Well, that's what they want to make him out to be, but that's what he was against, and that's what the Romans were doing. That's what people, and where he was preaching, that's what they were doing. He was teaching the baptism through water.
Shall I just respond? Okay, so in the Old Testament, which we believe is from God, God sets up a sacrificial system
where animals are to be sacrificed for sin. It's not just animals actually, there's other offerings that can be given. But take animal sacrifice as the highest form of sacrifice. And then there's a thing called the scapegoat, which will be sent out to the desert with the sins of Israel on it. Now this works in a contingent way. You know, it can't say make a mass murderer free of guilt in the eyes of God. It's just a contingent kind of sacrifice. It's a shadow, a foreshadowing of what is to come when Jesus, who is the ultimate sacrifice, dies on the cross for our sins. Now how can he do that? Because you see, if we go back to
he has to agree to it first.
And he does agree to it. Because we say in the Bible, it says he comes from heaven. He knows then everything about humanity, and he knows what he's going to do. And he says several times in the Gospels, I'm gonna go to die. That's my role. And I'm the Redeemer.
So we can have faith that those authors are relating the stories as you know, we can have faith that that's really what happened.
Because as he said, it was not videotaped. We can never know 100% that isn't just a complete distortion. But as I said, we got this information from different sources, which coalesces, and the core elements here. If it's Paul, Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, Peter, or the Book of Revelation. So you know, we got this, and we got non-biblical writings. But remember, on the core, there's no contradiction at the core. You can say you could allege contradictions. Well, I try and answer them, but I don't even have to worry because I'm talking about the core message that comes from all these different sources. Now, if you
it largely contradicts Jesus, though.
Go on, give me an example of what he says.
Okay, before you continue, I'm going to leave. Phil, it's lovely to meet you.
And your name is here?
Eric.
Eric, brilliant. Hopefully see you in the new year.
Quiz star will look you up and follow you. I think we've argued. But yeah, you might see me. I don't live in London currently, but I'll
you can say if you comment, it's me, it's in the park, the Mennonites.
I have that assignment as my profile.
Alright.
Okay, so did Jesus want people in the land to sacrifice animals for an atonement for their sins?
Well, first thing is, he came to fulfill the entire sacrificial system. So after him, there'd be no more sacrificing of animals.
But okay, so before he was crucified, did he want people to sacrifice animals?
Yes, because being God, he ordained that system. That system was set up by him. It was, but not for its own sake. It was to actually lead men to see.
If you wanted people to sacrifice animals, then why did he teach baptism through water?
Because once he was sacrificed, then the power could be in the baptism to forgive us our sins, to wipe away the stain of original sin. But it required the sacrifice of the man God to empower this sacrament, baptism and the other sacraments we have.
Okay, so if Jesus walked around the land and he was trying to he wanted to tell people to treat others how they want to be treated.
Yes.
Right? That he didn't invent.
Yes.
That, you know, that's something that's part of it. It's like a code that we're born with.
Okay. Did not have to betray Jesus. He was a man who had free will. He could have chosen not to, but he chose to. Had it not been Jesus, somebody else would have probably, if it not been Judas, somebody else would have probably done it.
Was it the destiny?
But nonetheless, the man who does the crime is not the one who has to do the crime. But Jesus' sacrifice was nonetheless baked into human history. So that just as Adam's sin was, although Adam did not have to sin and start the whole drama off, but it was the way it was, God knew Adam was going to verse 13 to 53, verse 12. It speaks of the sacrifice of a man for the sins of the nation. So it's already there.
Okay,
it's going to happen. And in Daniel chapter 9, Messiah is going to be killed.
And we have in other areas, Isaiah 53, and in Psalm 22, you have the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross being prophesied as well. So, and in our book, which is not in the Protestant Bible, oh gosh, what is it? Wisdom of Solomon, I think chapter 3, I think it is. You have this prophecy of Jesus who's going to be killed, again, for man, by evil people.
So did Jesus sacrifice himself? God sacrificed Jesus, or people sacrificed Jesus?
Well, okay, it's God the Father, with God the Son and God the Holy Spirit, sacrificing Jesus on the cross for the sins of mankind, but sacrificing the Son of God in his human nature that he's taken to himself for the very purpose of dwelling, tabernacling amongst us, being one with us, and going through the pains and sufferings we have to ultimate death on the cross. As the
Jesus did not sacrifice himself.
Now, that's where we come to the historical
for
data,
people's
isn't it?
sins.
Yeah.
But even if he wanted to, it didn't happen because he didn't die on the cross. And you can have faith that he didn't rise on the cross using the gift of reason that God gave you, because he was alive. I mean, it is possible to rise from the dead, even contemporary times, but he didn't die on the cross.
But you can't prove that. Here's what we do. This is
I mean, I have great evidence. I have eyewitness accounts from the first. I mean, give
me a name that he didn't die on the cross.
Well, I mean, eyewitness based on what they what they tell. Well, maybe they're not eyewitness accounts, but we have first century accounts. All the people that witnessed Jesus walking around.
Yeah, all I want to know
after the crucifixion.
All the people who speak of him walking around after the crucifixion have the resurrection prior to him walking around.
Yeah.
Now, if there's any source you have that says he didn't die on the cross, that would be a great benefit to the Muslims, because they've been trying to get hold of that source for years.
Oh, okay.
So you see, my point of when I started off talking to you was to look at the historical data. All we have are those documents that are in the New Testament, and a few that are not in the New Testament, like Clement's first letter to the Corinthians, which is maybe earlier than 2 Peter and the book of Revelation. So that's quite early, and the Didache, which may be earlier than those two. Now, the early documents all testify to the broad message that is in the New Testament and is well known to Christians and non-Christians, that Jesus preaches around Galilee and goes to Judea, preaches there, and he's ultimately arrested and dies on the cross and then rises from the dead. But when he's preaching, in the documents we have, he's saying that he's going to go to Jerusalem and to be killed as a sacrifice for us, as a redeemer. So when we say no, that isn't so, we have no historical data to contradict that. And that would mean we're saying something that's just brought about out of thin air. That's why I didn't want to say to you, oh, here's why I believe what I believe, because I really feel it in my heart. No, it's not that. Of course, I may have that feeling, but
okay, I'm not saying I mean, so I mean, I guess I don't have a consistent way to say it, but I mean, he did not die on the cross. So it's similar to okay, so it's like Romeo and Juliet. Whenever Juliet is laid into the Capulet tomb, her entire family is fooled. Everybody, the people that are closest to her, they know without a shadow of a doubt that she's dead. She's gone. Who in their right mind would bury their own daughter, knowing that she's alive? They believe that she was dead. They're completely convinced. That is the same way that people believe that Jesus was dead. I believe it was the same potion that Juliet took, the same relative potion as what Jesus took. Mandrakes. They've been making potions out of mandrakes for thousands of years, and they would dilute it in vinegar and would dip it in the sponge, and people would eat the sponge. That, I mean, even in the Gospels, they even mention Jesus eating the sponge with the vinegar. It has mandrakes in it.
All right. There's an idea, theory.
It's this plant that's used as like an anesthetic, and things called soporific. It can make a person seem like it can make their breathing really shallow, and it's like they're dead. But it gives them the semblance of death.
So let's talk about this theory then.
I think it might, if you take too much, it can make you like, it can have bad side effects.
So then how
Alright, well hold on, let's get on with it. First thing is, we have no documents to suggest that. That's the first thing.
Well, yeah, I think there's like Roman medical texts from the first century.
No, nothing suggesting that happened to him.
Well, in the Gospels, he does drink vinegar.
Yes, that's right.
A sponge that's dipped in vinegar.
Yes, but I'm just saying the theory you put forward. There's no document which says that happened.
I think maybe one or two.
So the next thing is.
I don't remember which one.
The next thing is the documents say he was nailed to the cross, his hands and his feet, and he was there a certain amount of time, a certain number of hours, and then a Roman soldier in John's Gospel put his spear into his side, to his heart, and blood and water comes out. So they don't break his legs, which they do with normal crucified victims, because they see he's already dead.
Yeah, because he's a victim.
So, given all that, he's dead. Now, if you go beyond that, and you say, right,
well, he's not a victim.
all the people who wrote about this said he died, rose from the dead, and then was seen alive subsequently. Nobody says that, well, he seemed to die, it was a kind of a swoon, a potion, and he actually was revived. Because after all, if he was revived from the people would be saying, fantastic, our leader Jesus has managed to survive. But we're not going to go out and die for that. We're just happy he survived. But we're not saying he's special, because he's just managed by luck to survive. Well, but all of them went out and preached that he'd risen from the dead, and guess what? The Jews and the Romans both wanted to hunt down his followers. They would get them and they would torture them,
because they were lying.
And the Romans would easily, if they could, or the Jews, get sworn statements from those followers admitting they'd lied when they say that he'd risen from the dead, rather than had been revived after a potion. Because these people could be tortured to the extent they'd be made to tell the truth. But no statement came out of any Roman court about this in all the time that the survivors, that the witnesses were alive. They all are saying he rose from the dead. So the religion spreads rapidly without any ability of Romans or Jews to actually contradict it.
Well, did anyone, do you believe that anyone died for Jesus before he was crucified?
Before he was crucified, nobody's recorded as dying before that.
Died for Jesus before he was crucified?
No. There was none. That actually was not appropriate. He was not calling for anybody to be killed or to sacrifice themselves for him while he was in his life. He was under a program, a 3.5-year program. It begins about 6 months. John the Baptist is to preach. And that's prophesied in Isaiah, that there will be the one who comes first. Then Jesus comes on the scene, then he's to spend 3.5 years of ministry, and then he's to leave the earth shortly after that, after the resurrection, the ascension. So everything's programmed.
So where did he go?
He goes back to the Father.
Well, where could he go? After crucifixion, you said he has wounds in his hands, walking around. What are Jesus' options then?
Well, he's God, so he can have any option he wants. But the decision is going to be.
But he didn't stick around. He didn't stick around and talk to the Romans.
No, because he's there to speak to believers. Because what he's doing is establishing the young Catholic Church, whose members will go and spread this gospel out, as Matthew 28 says. They're going to go spread the gospel to the whole world and baptize everybody who will become a believer. Jesus, after that, ascends to the Father and is reunited with the Father in an absolute sense. He's never totally disunited from the Father, but in his human nature he's disunited. Well, in his human nature he's united with the Father now. in heaven from the moment of the ascension. But we, the church, then the Holy Spirit, the third person of the Trinity, comes down to dwell amongst us and in us. And that's when the church spreads out.
So if Jesus didn't die for our sins, if Jesus died for our sins, that would mean that dying for Jesus is showing love to Jesus. But that would, if somebody were to die for Jesus 500 years after Jesus' life, then that is a reduction of the good that person, that is not love for Jesus. Dying for the sake of Jesus in a different time period, that is not giving. I mean, that is not helping Jesus.
Saint Irenaeus, I think it was Saint Irenaeus.
They can live a long life doing good for others, which is what Jesus taught.
I think it was Saint Irenaeus, but I could be wrong about which father it was, said that the blood of the martyrs is the seed of the word. So paradoxical as it is, and it actually isn't paradoxical, if you see somebody dying for something in which they believe...
For the word.
Yeah, don't
question
get
is
hung up on that.
word?
Just on a human level, if you see somebody dying for something in which they believe, you're more likely to be impressed by what they say and what they stand for, because they're prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice. Now, I said to you that very soon after you came here, that the reason to believe in Jesus is the same reason as you believe in the truth. Whatever is true, you must believe in. If Jesus is God, you must believe that no matter what.
Well, just because something is true doesn't mean you're willing to die for it.
Well, actually, here's where we differ. You see, we've got souls, we've got immortal souls. And so our bodies are temporary, our bodies here are temporary. So if you deny the truth, you're going against reason. You're going against reason to deprive yourself of pain. But pain, for the Christian, is a temporary phase in life. And we all die of pain, most of us die in pain anyway, so it's every reason to not deny truth, to be prepared to die to maintain truth against falsehood. And when that falsehood is not just...
There are good lies, though.
When that falsehood, though...
Good lies.
Good lies.
Yeah, but lies.
Y'all lies, yeah.
Okay.
Lies.
Untruth.
Let me explain why that can't be true.
Untruth.
As in you can buy into them, or like they're justified.
No, not that they're I'm not saying that they're effective. Actually, okay. So it's 1945, and you have a bunch of Jews in your basement.
Yeah.
A soldier knocks on the door and says, "Have you seen any Jews?"
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it?
Have you seen any Jews around here? Yeah. What do?
Yeah.
You lie. No, there's no Jews. You just gave Jews food in the basement.
That's just
you
water.
lie. And then the soldier leaves.
Remember, I never disagreed.
Water.
When you said...
That's like what is permissible, like for the greater good.
Yeah, exactly.
This is off the point, though.
So it's not about truth.
This is off the point, though, isn't it? You see, if you're dying for truth yourself, that's what you're talking about. People who die for Jesus. We're not talking about saving other people, like in the basement you described. That's a different scenario. This situation is focused on a martyr for Jesus, as opposed to saying, I'll deny Jesus and I'll carry on living so I can continue to do good. Our view is that if you die for Jesus, people will be impressed by that. They will become Christians, and instead of being a bunch of pagans who don't do the good they could do, they will do. Yeah, sure, I'm saying that. Those 10 people, say, who become Christians will stop practicing paganism, and there'll be far more good done in the world as a total amount than there would have been if I just denied Jesus and then did my bit of good in the world. So even on your utilitarian analysis, it is better for me to die for Jesus, affirming belief in him being God, and convert a bunch of other pagans or non-believers, and they do lots of good. That's 10 times as much good as I could have done.
Is he wrong?
Well, so God, Allah, Deus, is God. Jesus might be pointing towards God, but Jesus is not God, and Jesus can be God, and Jesus doesn't want to be God, and Jesus didn't tell anybody that he was God, and it's not rational that Jesus is God.
Okay.
Jesus is not God. That's
wait a minute.
That is true, and that will forever be true.
Again, it comes down to the documents we've got. Firstly, there's nothing to stop God taking a human nature to himself. He could take a cat nature to himself. He could take a dog nature to himself. He can do anything, God, right?
Well, God created all those things, and
so He can take a nature to Himself. God as a created nature, right?
So okay, so
I know. Just
if God can appear in the form of a cat, then that means that God can appear in the form of you now.
Yes.
And then He left now.
Yes.
And then He's back now.
Yes.
And then He's left.
Yes.
And now He's Him.
Yes.
All at the same time.
Are you
He's not limited to having to be there at the point of incarnation.
God can do anything except what would be an illogical sentence, you know.
He doesn't have. God doesn't have to be locked inside a body.
God couldn't change you into a woman.
So therefore, God can choose.
Could God change you into a woman?
Change in the middle of life?
Yeah, no, just like ting, like that, and then instantly you become a woman without surgery.
Well, I mean, it depends on what you mean by God. So God.
Well, okay, if you have a different view of God, God is the one who's all-powerful, all-knowing. So take the all-powerful bit. The gentleman suggested, can God change you into a woman?
All-knowing.
Like magic.
We're only dealing with those ones at the moment. Just how all-powerful. If He's all-powerful, He certainly can change you into a woman right now.
All-power, okay.
Yeah? Now, and if He's all-powerful, He can certainly take to Himself a human nature right now.
But
there's no document saying otherwise.
But God is not all powerful in the way of the generosity of God, because God gives us power.
Oh well, look, I'm not denying that. But when we look at this question, can God take to Himself a human nature? If He's all powerful, He can do that. If He can't do that, He's not all powerful, and by definition, He's not God.
So, but that's based on that definition.
Okay then. So if you're saying God is limited in His power to do things like that, this is the God who made the universe. The God who made living things from non-living things. He made the universe from nothing. The God to take a human nature to Himself is easy peasy for God.
Well, God doesn't make all these things from nothing. He creates those things from something.
Okay,
and
He
that
created
something
life.
Is God.
If He created life from non-life, and of course there's some point at which life didn't exist, everybody says that, then life comes into existence. If He creates life from non-life, then there's no reason He can't, that just prevent Him attaching to Himself a human nature, irrespective of gender, irrespective of that.
Because they always use,
so you see,
always uses he.
Take it as a shorthand form right now. Okay, so He can take a human nature to Himself if He can create life from non-life, because that's life, a thing from a thing which is not that thing.
Something from nothing.
Now, given that God can do that, we have to ask, did He do it or not? The reason to believe He did that is because the historical data, those documents I talk about, say He did. So only if you're an atheist can you escape this, it seems to me.
Contradict atheists.
I don't believe even a Muslim can escape it because they don't have the historical data.
How can you be an atheist and still admit that you exist?
Well, we don't absolutely need historical data to live a life in accordance with how God wants us to live.
I never said you did.
Categorically.
I never said
if you
you
go
did.
5 quintillion miles that way, there's a planet there.
Yeah.
And I mean, there can be a civilization on that planet 5 quintillion miles that way. There can, yes.
Same
because that's specific.
My friend, never mind that. Even if listen,
not in time.
We've got the equivalent of that. People who lived out in the rainforests.
Theoretically.
The people who've lived in rainforests and deserts who never knew anything about my religion or any of the organised religions of the world. But you know what can happen is, St. Paul said, Gentiles have the law written on their hearts, so you can follow your conscience, because God, we say, made all living sentient beings.
Yes, our conscience. So where does our conscience come from? Is our conscience from the Bible?
But this is a separate question from the one we were talking about. The one we were talking about is whether God took to Himself a human nature or not. That was the question, and I'm saying the data says He did. And once you've got to that data, you have to deal with it. If you don't want to, if you want to ignore the data, you can just ignore it. But we have no basis for discussion otherwise.
Well,
my version
we have
your version.
We have the nature in God within us.
Yeah, but you say that, and I've got my own version of things.
That's the gift that God gave us.
You and I would never come to an agreement about what that nature is, because we are different in our viewpoints.
We do agree.
We don't.
Because to disagree is insane.
But now you're saying that.
I mean,
but
we may disagree on like historical. We have different historical opinions, but to disagree that God is the universal source of consciousness, and I have consciousness just like you have consciousness. I mean, do you disagree with that?
No, but that's very minimalist.
Do you share
good,
the same
it's good.
consciousness?
No.
You don't. Okay.
It's good that he's the source, but that's minimalist. We can go beyond that. And well, actually, if we said we agree on that level, we've got some agreement, right?
Yeah.
Fantastic. But I'm saying we can go beyond that to know much
more.
So
how do we agree? Is it because we're both Muslim? Is it because we're both from Cambodia?
I don't know why you believe that God is the universal source of consciousness, because I don't know why you believe there's a God. But you may have natural reasons. You can have reasons without Christianity to believe that. That's fine. So I accept whatever you're saying. We have a common belief there, and that's just fine. All I'm saying is, I go further and say we can know much more. If you disagree, that's fine too. But my view is based on historical data, one should be a Catholic. And that's why I am a Catholic. And those other things I said, the stigmata, the apparitions of Mary, the Shroud of Turin, the bleeding hosts, all these kinds of things which give you present day reasons to be a Catholic.
So do you believe that it's a good idea to treat others how you would like to be treated? Is that a good idea?
An absolutely good idea. However, it's not everybody in the world's idea. The Aztecs would take theirs.
Well, I'm asking you. I'm asking you. So you believe it's a good idea? Okay,
yeah,
so
that's because I'm a Catholic.
So then, is crucifying a person multiple times in your life, is that a good idea?
No, it's a bad idea.
Okay, so why do it to Jesus? If you believe Jesus was a real person, that means that he had a real soul. Do people have souls?
Yes.
Okay, so if Jesus was real, that means that he had a real soul. Why continuously crucify this person? Why torment a soul so many times? Why choose to do that? That's not loving your neighbor.
I don't know why you know. It was
That's
once.
hating your neighbor.
It was one time. Why'd you say so many times?
That's nailing the neighbor.
It was one time. Why'd you say many times?
Because if it's for people's sins, people sin multiple times.
No, the crucifixion was once for all.
One time for Jesus.
Time, okay?
But then people...
And its effects are throughout time.
But every time people are constantly making crosses, big or small, and they're nailing a little person.
Yeah, but that's an image. That's not about Jesus being killed again. That's not that. So what I want to say is this. Again, I come back to the historical data. It is said in the historical data that this happens, and the Israelite religion predicts it's going to happen, and that we say is from God. Now, we believe in the God who worked all these miracles for us Catholics, amongst us Catholics. They're phenomena which aren't in the natural realm. If they happen, they have to come from a non-natural realm. So that vindicates our teachings as Catholics. Not just the historical documents, which, as you could say, could be wrong. They're unlikely to be wrong in fundamental sense, but they could be wrong. So the additional stuff...
they could be wrong. They could be right.
Well, when you're a historian,
that's
the life and death of Jesus.
Right or wrong.
The life and death of Jesus is more historically attested than any other event in history.
So they could be right. They could be wrong. Large, in different proportions, in accordance to how God wants us to live. I am saying that they are wrong on that account.
On what basis?
God does not want us to die for Jesus.
How do you deny the veracity of the historical documents which say he did?
Okay. If anything, I'm not an enemy of Jesus.
Never said that.
I believe there's a lot of words I put in Jesus' mouth that he absolutely did not say, and he would not want anybody to quote him.
What's your basis for saying that?
God wants us to live for Jesus.
What's your basis for saying that? I'm just asking. What you've said some things. My basis for my Catholic faith is the historical documents. What's your basis for disagreeing with the Catholic faith and those points like God doesn't want us to die for Jesus?
Because they blatantly contradict how Jesus behaved, and there's a bunch of very contradictory things that they quote him as saying.
The martyrdom of St. Stephen, as described in the Acts of the Apostles. St. Stephen is there. He could deny Jesus to avoid being killed, but he looks up and he sees our Lord Jesus at the right hand of the Father before he dies. He is vindicated in his martyrdom. and we celebrate his day on 26th of December.
He's considered to be the first one, right?
Yeah,
the
he's the first
mark.
one. So how is it?
Didn't even he say that God does not want sacrifice?
No, not the sacrifice of the animals. The sacrifice of me now. He does want that.
Jesus was an animal. Sacrificing Jesus is an animal sacrifice.
If you put him in that kind of classification in botany, in science, biology, fine. But look, just to get Jesus is a human being. The data that we have say that Jesus wants us to be prepared to lay down our lives for him. He says,
could that not be true?
He says, take up your cross. Yeah, but if you're going to
it is a possibility.
If you're going to deny it, you have to have some data to deny it with. Otherwise, you can just deny everything.
So
you could deny, for example,
data is the gifts that God gave us: reason, ethics, and freedom.
But you can have reason.
There's such a thing as bad ethics.
Okay, so you can imagine a Jesus who would say, "I don't want you to die for me." You can imagine Jesus who does say, "I want you to die for me."
You can.
Both are reasonable. Both are reasonable in their own kind of world of reason and whatever axioms you work on to get whatever precepts you have. But actually, the historical data suggests it's this version of Jesus that says, "I want you to die for me." And in fact, if you go against the data, then you can go against the data in all kinds of things. Like, for example, the Earth being round, the Sun being 90 million miles away, or there being, 4 seasons, or whatever it is. You could deny the data of your senses.
But the truth about that, the truth about these historical things is not necessarily relevant to you. What is more relevant to you is the truth, is your life, the truth about your life, not the truth about Jesus' life. That's less relevant to you than the truth about your life.
Okay.
So how can we discover the truth about how we should live our lives?
That's a fair point.
By using the gifts that God gave us.
Okay.
In the book that I gave you, the gifts of reason, ethics, and freedom.
All right, now my friend.
Jesus was born free. Every time that we nail him to a piece of wood, we are affirming taking away freedom from a person. That is a bad affirmation. If somebody arrested a gospel writer, okay? They arrested a gospel writer in the 1st century, and we're like, okay, we're gonna remember this gospel writer because he was so amazing. So to remember him, I'm gonna have handcuffs. I'm gonna put handcuffs.
You can lose his job.
I'm gonna wear handcuffs. I'm gonna have a handcuff necklace, handcuff a little bracelet, handcuff Lucky Charms, handcuff on my clothing. What's that gonna do? That person goes to China. They walk around in the street and they see handcuffs. What's immediately going to pop in their mind? They're not going to think about 3,586 years ago there was a person that was handcuffed and they did good things in their life. No, they're going to think handcuff, handcuff, handcuff. Hey, they're gonna, every time somebody that passes them that has no idea what that reference is, they don't speak English or Latin or whatever, they're going to think that's spreading around a bad idea.
Okay, now then, Jesus, as I say, the historical data support the version that I have of Jesus, just the way it is. So if you depart from that, you're departing from it without any data to base your position on. But if you do depart from it anyway, and you say, right, look, it's not reasonable to pursue this version of remembering Jesus in the way we do, then I'd say this: the Catholic faith is the most successful religion on earth. And it's built the best civilization there's ever been on Earth. So if you want to look at outcomes, we've got it. We've got the answer anyway.
Part of the reason of that is because in these documents, varying degrees of truth, there are principles of behavior that are propounded in them, right? And a lot of those principles are related to how Jesus chose to live his life. So it's ethics. So ethics, there's two things that are inextricable. Or, I might be wrong about this, but this is my own personal theory. So it's ethics and technology. But ethics comes first. Without ethics, we're just two apes beating each other over the head. For us to have
advanced technology possible.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever
so because we made we may be two cavemen, but because we choose to adhere to, they can be simple principles of behavior, we combine our heads and we create something bigger than what we would have created by ourselves. That's the power of ethics. Ethics is a gift from God, and we can evolve our ethical practice through another gift of God, which is reason. We can have reason before we have ethics, and then before we have ethics, we have reason. Before we have reason, we have the gift of freedom. When we crucify Jesus over and over and over again, we are reaffirming removing freedom from an individual.
Okay, how is it then? We have a civilization which was Catholic for a very, very long time in the West. And when it became Protestant, that's a version of Catholicism. It's a slightly different version, but it's a version. Then that's gone away in the Western world. So for a long time now, we've been a godless civilization. Why is it that the civilization and various metrics is in such decline?
God, we still had God.
Well, wait a minute. People in practice have not believed in God in any meaningful way since the 1960s in the Western world. Some big chunks of America, yes, but in Europe and Australia and so on, no.
That's a luxury.
So really, when you look at the world since, say, 1960 till today, what you're seing is this civilization which has not got God, not got the cross.
God doesn't belong to us, we belong to God.
Sure, but you're seeing, you guys have been running the show now since about 1960, and what we've seen is a decline in civilization to the point that...
Who guys? Who's guys?
Population has doubled.
People who don't accept the cross, don't accept the Catholic faith, or a version of it in Protestantism.
Did Jesus accept the cross?
Yeah, he had to.
Hold on, let's just stick on the theme.
Volunteered to.
I was just testing.
I mean like wanting to be crucified.
I'm just assessing.
Well, that was his purpose.
Okay. There's the question.
Assess your position with ethics.
Do you believe? Okay. Now I'm gonna ask you just whatever. Do you believe that Jesus wanted to be crucified?
Yes.
He desired it.
Yes, he did. He did. Because that was the way mankind was.
He knew he was going to
original sin needed to be disposed of.
Come back. Because even though he doubted it when he had to.
Or to southern France or whatever. He could have got away if he wanted to. He knew what was coming. Now, going back to your point though about how it should be better without the cross. We've got ethics and technology, you say. But as I said, go back from say about 1960 to now, we are seeing the European peoples in the Anglophone world, they're dying out. They're ceasing to have enough children, so they're going to disappear in the 22nd century. Now that is the version of civilization. You have your people, your position.
I'm saying we didn't have to believe in the. I'm saying we didn't have to believe in the cross back then. It wasn't. We didn't. I'm talking about even if you go back then. I'm saying it's a mistake. I'm saying the last 2,000 years, not 2,000, the last 1,900 years, people have been making a terrible mistake, and the terrible mistake is believing that a person is taking on our guilt, and that person wanted to do that.
But now that's gone. So go back to 1960. As I said,
if you buy into that, you allow so much more than might otherwise be possible. Like, it may not be 100% true, but for the greater good, for the utilitarian benefit of all, it is worth it.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. You can either use what people say, or you can use reason.
You were saying to me that ethics are what we need without the cross. But how is it that since the cross, Western civilization has gone into a downward spiral, so that it's even going to disappear? It's projectable that it'll disappear.
Which one?
The demographic, Western civilization.
Britain,
France, Germany, Italy. Well, it's easy. It's easy. You see the population detail, population statistics, right? Projected into the future. Italy, Spain, Germany, France, Britain, they're all going downhill.
We've got loads of immigration.
The immigration will mean that Africans and Asians will replace the end of Western civilization, but it's when the cross was got rid of. So your civilization without the cross and just ethics
means the end of civilization. That's
In the
practice
Roman
what's
civilization.
happening. When we had the cross, we had a thriving civilization.
Well,
so
not
that
just that.
shows in practice your theory fails.
Well, not ethics alone. You know, I mean,
We had technology
at
in
the
the
bare
19th
minimum,
century.
reason, ethics, and freedom.
Technology since
Well, we
fire.
had reason and ethics and the cross and some freedom in the world of Christianity. When the cross was got rid of, and what you don't regard as rational, and you just have rationality or reason, or unseparated from Christianity, then we have the civilization of the Western world, which is in a death spiral.
It's
It's just
secular,
going to
though. It's a
disappear.
state.
The buildings will be here. The European peoples will be gone
Have
from
a
Britain,
republican
from Europe,
state.
France, Australia, New Zealand. They'll be gone.
Well, they're not monarchy.
So how on earth can your view be the
Church and
correct
state.
one if it can't even sustain a
incorrect.
civilization? Or your view is not even to just sustain civilization that the Catholics built, is to go further unencumbered by the cross. But you're not even growing civilization.
Well, unfortunately, our civilization, our global civilization, is in danger.
No, it isn't.
what?
Africans are having children. Black Africans are having children. Asians are having, well, in certain parts of Asia they're having children. You know, the civilization of parts of the world is going
building
to be
up.
fine. But in the
Africa's
Western
a
world,
massive space.
where the cross has been explicitly rejected, that's technology. But then again, technology is a two-edged sword. Because you have
What
the war
technology
machines.
without ethics? And that's
But
part
we've
of the
got
danger.
ethics. We've got ethics, you've got ethics, your ethics, and the ethics of the average European man and woman. They're devoid of Christianity, but they're not building a better world, are they?
So it's like I asked you before: is crucifixion is it ethical? Is it good? It's not. If it's not good, then we shouldn't be symbolically crucifying people.
But
over and
how
over
is
and over
it
again.
that we had a better civilization than you've got? Your civilization, which has taken over from us, is declining to disappearing in the next century.
Well, that's all.
And in the process, we have massive crime rates, massive sexual disease, transmitted disease rates, breakdown of families, single parenthood, of all this rubbish that is a result of your beliefs. I'm not trying to be nasty to you.
No, but it's not a result of my beliefs.
The crossless beliefs.
So I'm trying to improve the situation.
Yeah,
so,
but you are the majority of people in control in the Western world. How come the world isn't getting better?
Okay. So one way
there's no sign of improvement either, my
one way
friends,
that we can
is there?
improve.
By the way, there's no sign of things getting better in the next 10 years or 50 years. All the stats go to worse, more crime, more less birth rates, worse outcomes for people in terms of their happiness, even worse outcomes in terms of their wealth. Young people cannot expect to have the life I've had.
50s, 60s.
That's how bad things are. And it's
Since the end of
your
Second World
people
War,
are running
world
the show.
population has doubled
There's no
and tripled
prospects of things
even.
getting better.
Okay, so
in the
what?
West,
Okay,
in the West.
No, the West though. The West is what? It's wealthy.
It's declining populations, it's disappearing. The wealth will be left to others.
It's not. Like people come
The population is declining here.
It's a 68
the native
million
population,
on
the
this island, or
native,
62
the
islands, or more than
native,
that.
the native population.
But that's life. Everywhere you go, someone builds up, someone comes in, someone fights, someone loses,
so
someone
therefore,
wins.
so the native population is declining when they abandoned the cross. It was thriving when they had the cross. Other civilizations are thriving because they don't follow your approach.
They need the moon and the
Westerners
cross.
follow your approach. If the Muslims start following your approach, they go into decline too.
Yeah.
Well, no, they're not following.
Then. We're
They're
dealing
not
with your
following my
civilization and
approach.
mine.
What's your
I mean,
one?
not my approach. They're not following what I.
No, they're not. But the West is. The West is, and that's why I'm comparing.
No,
the
they
West
don't. They take away freedom from billions of animals.
Hold on. Animals are nothing to do with the decline of our population.
Communism.
Nothing at all.
Communism.
In fact,
Decline in number or decline in moral.
Decline in number.
standing?
The very fact that if you decline in a number to a certain point, you will not recover your numbers.
Well, part of the reason why people are declining in numbers is because they're scared that the world is spiraling into a bad state.
Not at all. When we had the Cold War, during the 1950s, there was a baby boom in Britain. Throughout the 1950s and the early 60s,
to compensate for two
the
world
Cold
wars.
War became the Cold War became less dangerous in the 60s and then ceased to be in the
70s.
end of the 80s for a while. Now, we started it again with our antagonism of the Russians.
The gap of the
but
90s.
in all this time, since 1964 in the UK
War on
and
terror.
similar time in all the European countries, there's been a decline in the birth rate. As we've got richer, as we felt more prosperous and more secure.
So you're saying they should
After genocide,
they should have the freedom to have more children.
Yeah, you need
They have
money
the
for that,
freedom. They have total freedom to have more
But they're
children,
not.
but they don't because they've abandoned the cross. That's when it happens.
You need.
What do you mean, they're making them
you need to come
infertile?
up with
You're
poverty.
arguing that it's making them infertile, not believing in the cross?
No, what they do, they're choosing to not have kids.
Oh.
They're choosing not to get married. They're choosing to have casual sex.
true. Yeah,
They're
true.
choosing to shack up,
True,
choosing to have
true,
abortions,
true.
choosing to use the pill and
True,
all this kind of stuff.
true.
All this anti-Catholic stuff.
And advertising helps
Well,
decide that.
Against the cross.
But they could have been doing that before.
Catholicism
all
is
I'm
the
saying to you
foundation
is-
for that. Advertising,
All I'm saying to you is,
marketing.
what
The
you want,
Catholics
what
are
you
the best
believe in,
advertisers of
is
Jesus
making
ever.
civilization decline.
They're the best advertisers.
It's the
They're
way
like
it
the
is.
condom
Well,
before the
okay,
condom.
just because civilization has had
The prophylactic of Jesus.
you know, some level of improvement in hundreds and centuries, it does not mean that everything that's happened in the last 2,000 years is attributed to, you know, I mean, it's like a circular, it's like a circular argument or something like that.
Sorry, say what you're saying. I'm not sure what you mean.
What?
Tautology.
Is that what it is?
Well, when you have a
Something doesn't mean it's rational. It could be, it's logical, but it's not rational. But let me ask you this. If somebody has stakes driven through their hands and their feet,
and distorted his enemies. He chose to operate through his human nature, which limited him.
Okay, so let me ask you.
For the sake of being that sacrifice,
if the Romans did not crucify Jesus, they didn't. If they did not, they chose not to. Instead, they put him in chains. They locked him in chains. He did the same symbol. He did. He was locked. Let's every 5,000 years, everything was the same except for the chains. Then would you?
gymnastics competition in the world over the rings or whatever.
To answer your question, you there? You there? Are you there?
So you're saying you would? You would wear something like...
If I won the competition, I'd get the gold medal. Yeah, of course. Like, because you've won the rings, haven't you? You've held up with, like, for the most time. When you see the gymnast, like, do their thing.
However Jesus died.
Oh, okay.
Commemorate that.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's
the way it is.
Yeah,
but you've got to train for that sort of event. If you hold it up for 3 minutes.
No, I didn't think. Yeah, I just thought of it right now. It's not the best hypothetical.
Okay. Sorry, I don't want to be overly flippant.
Good point. No, that was good. It was good.
I answered you. I answered you.
No, yes.
I answered you. I said that no matter how he dies, we commemorate that. The point is that he dies.
Okay.
Everyone dies.
Okay. So, but that's just it, though. That's just it.
He dies.
It's impossible. Okay. I'm sorry I'm sorry that this is so true. That is true. That is true. That is true.
Yeah. What's impossible?
It is possible.
What is impossible?
That he did not die on the cross.
Listen,
he did not die.
It is a possibility.
Listen, it's possible.
That is true.
It's possible that Julius Caesar never invaded Britain, but we just look at the data we've got to say whether it happened or not.
Not personally.
Okay, but my point is, if it's possible that he didn't, then that would mean that we are condemning. We are choosing to use our words and our intention to perpetually remove the freedom from an individual, in light of the fact that it is possible that he did not die on the cross. We're not doubling down, we're not tripling down, but every day we're making this affirmation for something that
for the greater good.
Yeah, it's not ethical. It's not ethical to crucify a person. It's not ethical to.
It's on a purely historical level. It is almost certain he died on the cross. Historians say that.
Okay,
so
yeah.
What is? It's almost. It's pretty much certain that he died a violent death. Then forget the cross.
So why did they give? Why did they give him a sponge filled with soaked in vinegar?
So because that was the Roman way of torturing somebody by making them even more thirsty.
Oh.
Vinegar dries the mouth. Try swigging some vinegar.
Like innovative ways to torture and kill someone.
You're actually finding something in this and making a great big hypothesis out of just the fact that vinegar was put on a sponge.
Males are pretty cruel to
I'm
other
afraid
males,
the general view is he died
maybe he banged someone's
on the
wife
cross.
Or like that,
and that's the way it is.
Like the real truth. It's like, you know, like I always think like with like the Immaculate Conception. Well, Mary had a cousin who was working at Zachariah's house. Now, I'm not saying that like one woman had an affair, but like when one woman goes home and Joseph, because he's an honourable man,
all right,
decides
are there any
to
more
care.
questions? We're going to stop in a minute.
It don't fully add up. Do you know what I'm saying?
No. I listened to someone who was talking
Mary's got
about
a cousin called, what's her name?
the
Whatever
Cathecism.
Mary's cousin was.
Yeah.
And
she worked
was saying, I don't know if you know, it's 841.
Decide.
Okay, that's around the church and the world. Go on anyway.
Yeah, it's the one about
church and the Catholic Church and non-believers. Is that?
It says the church's relationship with the Muslims.
Okay, right.
Yeah, and it says the plan of salvation also includes those who acknowledge the Creator in the first place, amongst whom are the Muslims. These profess to hold the faith of Abraham, and together with us they adore the one merciful God, mankind's judge on the last day.
Shocking, eh?
Yeah.
Okay, let me explain. You're not the first one who's kind of like, they've not quoted directly that, but they've got that idea. They know what it's saying. Firstly, you notice how it says they profess to hold the faith of Abraham.
Yeah.
That's deliberate, because it's saying in the most polite way that they don't hold the faith of Abraham. Okay?
Yeah.
That's first thing, right? Next thing is, we say they worship the Creator, right? Which is the most shocking for non-Catholic Christians to hear or say. Here's how it goes, and you know you've heard me many times. Firstly, I say this: the Muslims, insofar as they believe in a Creator of the entire universe, they believe in the Creator. They worship God, the Creator. But we can know much more about the Creator than just that He's the Creator of the universe.
Yeah.
Great that they're not atheists. But so they don't know that God is a Trinity. So they're not worshiping. So if they don't acknowledge the Trinity under that aspect, they're not worshipping God.
Yeah.
Because they're not worshipping the true God as He actually is. I say this because you could be somebody who's ignorant in the desert or a forest, and you just somehow think about it and think, all this must have been made by someone. Must have been made by the most powerful being ever. And you start worshipping that being just by using your common sense, your reason. That is the person who's worshipping God, but they know nothing about Him. But they're worshipping God. And the Muslims are like that. But they've added other stuff where you can say, unlike that person in the desert, these are also not worshipping God. In the sense they're not getting God right, and they're contradicting the truths about God which we know. So the key thing is, for me, that we see Muslims under at least those two aspects.
Right.
And we acknowledge what they have, but seek to bring them beyond they're beyond the atheists, they're better than the atheists, but they need to be brought further into the absolute truth.
And that's what it's really saying. We're acknowledging what they have, but saying they don't profess the faith of Abraham.
No, but
and that's what they need to profess.
Yeah, so when was this put in though? Because obviously it can't have been there from the beginning.
The Catechism is a 1992 document.
Oh, right.
And but that statement itself comes from the Second Vatican Council, and the footnote to that document will probably say which document it is. Possibly they'll say LG, which is Lumen Gentium, which is a particular document from the council. Does it give a footnote?
But we're not equal. We're not. I'm not
But we may be fragments of God. Everyone has a little bit of blood of Christ, or whatever you want to call. If Christ was blood, and then you've got a bit of Christ there, 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 bit of Christ everywhere. Everyone's one unit of Christ.
There's a footnote at 330.
Like little droplets on the earth.
Because it's got the. It's a 330, the footnote.
So 841 is there, it says 330.
Yeah.
Oh, so have you got footnote 330 then? Or is it not hot linked, so you can't hyperlink, so you can't get to it? Never mind, I think it will be Lumen Gentium, the Vatican Council document. Now, the Second Vatican Council took place between 1962 and 1965.
Right.
And it was basically looking at these other religions. Now, our general view has been, we have a prayer for the conversion of the Muslims.
Right.
It says in the 19th century, it says that they may come out of the darkness of Mohammedanism. Right? So that's a really clear statement that we know they're not following the right religion.
Yeah.
But at other times, you go back to the Middle Ages, the 11th century. Pope, I think it's Leo IX, who describes in a letter to the Sultan of somewhere, talks about how we believe in one God, right? Because that's acknowledging that aspect of their belief.
So your energy goes somewhere else.
There's a deficiency.
It doesn't matter.
So this is all in conformity with Catholic tradition, and I think it makes common sense too. But we say that Allah is perhaps maybe the god La, the pagan god of the Arabs.
Yeah, from before Muhammad.
But that doesn't mean a Muslim today, or even after the time of Muhammad, when he was worshipping Allah, that he really thought it's that pagan god. He thinks it's the creator of the universe. So we're saying we know really these Muslims believe they're worshipping the creator of the universe. And so God is surely going to accept that fact. They're not like Hindus who might worship a kind of a lesser deity. They're different. I want to say the Hindus, so we can acknowledge, in a sense, that you have a belief in one God as well, in a sense. I don't know the details. But insofar as they would say they're praying to that God, then we can acknowledge them. But I don't know enough about Hinduism.
Yeah, I don't think they do, because I think probably the reason why they've chosen the Muslims is because I think that's the only belief. Well, the other one they could have chosen is Zoroastrians, but I think they don't exist anymore. So I think because the Muslims are still around. So because I think if the Zoroastrians still had like a established belief somewhere in I don't know, I think it's in the Persia.
I mean, Freddie Mercury was Zoroastrian. There are some of them. Them for that reason, they're just insignificant now. But the church talks about the Jews. I think actually so it takes about. They may talk about the Eastern Orthodox first, and then the Protestants, then the Jews, and then the Muslims. It's like going out, spiraling out from the different groups who are close to us and then further away.
Yeah, the Jews are 839.
Okay.
Literally.
Yeah, those who have not really, Jewish.
If he finds a time travel,
and then in 840,
or he's like this miracle magic thing.
Yeah, then 841 is the Muslims.
And then after that goes to the pagans after that.
It's just the one with non-Christian religions is in the common origin and end of the human race. So it's this like I don't know how you say it, where they try to now bring have a relation with the other other beliefs or people who believe in God. Was this? Where was? When did this like change happen? Because I presume that originally when the Catholics were out, say Nicaea time coming up, they would never. I wouldn't see how they would have had all this in their belief.
You're absolutely right. Here's what happens. We have going back before the 1960s, a view where we didn't really have anything to say about the false religions, right? Even the Protestants or the Greek Orthodox. But in the 1960s, we started looking at it from a different angle. That is seeing what's positive about them, and how we're all. And of course, you know, in the modern age, we've come to see the world as one human family, even more because of communications.
Yeah, true.
And so I think there's a recognition of a desire, of a need to start addressing these other peoples with their other religions, some way or other, rather than just saying, well, they're false.
Because actually I was thinking maybe it was to do with the war as well, because one of the things that causes wars is when nations are like, peoples are hard against each other and don't communicate. But once you have like a cross communication between countries, you actually reduce the chances of having wars between them as well.
The war was definitely a major event, I think, in the church's thinking, particularly by the 1960s. Which this council was less than 20 years after the war. So we have, particularly in relation to the Jews, that's why you get a more positive approach to the Jews, because the Jewish question was dealt with in a very different way before. And I think that, although I can agree with everything in the council documents and everything in the council in the Cathecism, I still think we take an approach to the false religions, including the Jewish religion, which is a bit too soft. But that's not the council, that's not the official documents, that's churchmen who've not actually, they've gone too far in being positive about these false religions.
Because I've heard some of the things that were said about the
shit happens in life.
That's it. Look, you've got a fault here. We appreciate what you're doing, but it's limited, and it's got a false God and a false Jesus. And we will say, and here's the trickiest thing, but we have to say it's the Jews. You've got a false God, because don't forget, these Jews today are rabbinic Jews who follow the Talmud. They're not the Jews of the Old Testament who just hung on in there for 19 centuries. They're not. They invented a new religion, Talmudic Judaism or Rabbinic Judaism. And so we have to address that. So they are, we say if they worship the one God, yes, they're doing it in the way the Muslims are. But on the other hand, they've got a false God, because after all, if you believe in the Holy Trinity, and they're not believing in the Holy Trinity, they're worshipping a false God. In that aspect, like the Muslims worship a false god.
Well, actually, it's interesting you say that, because I was speaking to Josh, and one thing interesting he said about, in relation to Isaiah 53, he says that there are some Jews or of the rabbis that teach that that person mentioned in Isaiah 53 could be Rabbi Akiva. Don't know if you've ever heard of him.
Rabbi Akiva who anointed Bar Kokhba.
Well, I don't know the details, but that's the name that he mentioned. So this is like really early. It's like in, I can't remember exactly when, but it was in not sufficient condition. Really early on, like in the 3rd century or something.
Well, I thought he was actually about the middle of the 1st century when the Bar Kokhba revolt. Middle of the 2nd century when the Bar Kokhba revolt occurred.
Sometime way back then. And so, but it's a fact, like you're saying,
because he's a major figure in the establishment of Talmudic or Rabbinic Judaism.
All right.
So that's why I think that Josh may have said that some believe it's so central.
So that's not their way of trying to, it's actually counter the way that the Christians are using Isaiah 53.
It's also very silly. The things that are said about that character in Isaiah 52, 53 is just way above any human being that we can imagine. So I think that they're on a sticky wicket. But then, Josh's religion is bonkers. it's worse than Islam because they have, you know, this idea. You know, the Muslims, their silly idea of, you know, the hadith, and they get passed on for 200 years. They get that's nonsense. But the Jews, they have the oral law that goes from Mount Sinai all the way to the Talmud, and that's 1500 years to Jesus, and then another 500 years to the Talmud. 2,000 years of oral law being passed on without any of it being written down.
All right, yeah.
So you know, you get crazy with the Muslims, but you get crazy with the Jews.
Well, I suppose you can see, because especially like even when it's said when Jesus talks to them, and it talks about the washing. You remember the way you have to wash your hands?
Oh yeah.
Before you eat, and then Jesus said about washing of cups and something else, isn't it? So obviously they really did have all those extra things then.
Yes. And so yeah, the oral law was there then. I mean, not as a real oral law from Sinai, as they pretend it was from Sinai, but you know, they were adding their own stuff, and Jesus is nailing that.
Yeah.
But they just built upon it. They continued with this. But it's fascinating to see these Jews of today are kind of bear witness to a certain authenticity of the gospel, because if Jesus is criticising things that are being done with this oral law idea at his time, that shows that the Jews are well, it shows the gospel are authentic, because in the 1st century AD, if Jesus is referring to these oral traditions, and we know the modern Jews believe in those oral traditions, then definitely those gospel writers were describing what was actually happening at the time of Jesus. So it's a nice little proof for us, or evidence at the very least.
And then the other thing as well is the fact that when they talk about Jesus in a derogatory way in the Talmud, and if Jesus didn't exist and it was just a bunch of people making some noise, they wouldn't have taken it seriously. But when someone comes and actually is like a thorn in their flesh, that obviously is a thing that would inspire someone to do some big writings on it.
Yes. In fact, what I've read about those early days, the early times of Jesus and his followers, after Jesus left the earth, the Jews were extreme. There was a kind of now between us and the Jews now, it's clear cut difference. But in the 1st century or 2, it wasn't so clear cut. There seemed to be this merging of borders.
Yes, a lot of Christians, most of them were Jews, isn't it? Early on.
So, but also though, you'd get this kind of like ordinary Jews who weren't yet Christians would still be attracted and be involved with Christianity to some degree. And so this blurring of the division worried the rabbis, and worried us as well. So both forces pulled the two apart to make the borderlines clear. And from the Jewish side, what they would do, they would make of Jesus an absolute criminal. And they would forbid the reading of the New Testament. And they'd anathematise those who would do it.
I was going to say, and Mary as well.
She was a bad one for them. Awful things in the Talmud about her. But I've got copies of from the Talmud, curses against Jews who would read the prophet Daniel chapter 9 and interpret the 70 weeks prophecy, because they knew that they would always come to the time of Jesus, and that would turn Jews into Christians. It's fascinating how desperate they were. But of course, when you've got that going on in the first few centuries, hatred of Christ. So you can be a Jew who converts to Buddhism, converts to Islam, converts to anything. When you convert to Christianity, you're no longer a Jew. It just shows the absolute hatred of our religion. Okay. Look, I may not be back here next Sunday, so have a good. You don't celebrate Christmas, I think.
No, just call it holiday season.
Have a wonderful time, and prayerful time. All right.
And you as
God
well.
bless.
for example,
And everyone went, oh, well, obviously he'd have to toe the line. Fuck that. Okay? It's my view. I think it's complex. I don't participate in it.
exactly, you can come and see that.
Yes, exactly. Oh, yeah.
Now, the person that's attacking you is stronger than you.
And he said no.
By the whole world, the US and the US there was nobody else. If those two decided, like, I mean, let's say they decided this and they gave good time. Was it
What happened to the Somali border?
Your friend is even in Indonesia.
historically, I think it's authentic, Armenia, the massacre of Armenia, the massacre of the crucified woman, the crucified woman, naked on a cross, but they hide it, search it for public. Because they hide it, it's too much. They don't want any conflict with the Turkish. That's it. It's history and forget it. There's so much killing, so much massacre. There is some truth behind it, because what they for 15 years, just 7
get the way of his purposes, shows another perversity.
I think well, I don't blame them, yeah. If you remember Armenia, as soon as you see a mosque, you want to burn it. Democracy, he was easy. Jewish that's why a lot of Muslims blame us. They say, a lot of questions and nonsense and so...
Jesus is not
fucking terrorists, mate. What do you expect? Terrorists! Terrorists!
It's not allowed. So why did you do that to him? Let him go, sir. Why did you do that to him? Let him go. What's all about?
يحكوا ويا البنات. يحكوا ويا البنات. He said they get the money directly from the government. I don't know. I thought the
And yet, knowing on the shoulder, like they're saying the Christman over there, didn't they? Were talking an hour having a conversation. Then the Let's be honest. You're all gonna gang up around him and make him feel bad.
Yeah, just go.
No, I told him, look, just keep it moving.
So silly. It's so silly. It's childish, man. I'm like kids. Like that. So silly.
What, like that? Is that not?
But anyway,
talking to the Muslims.
I'll back over to him that mind catching outside has struggled with the spirit. So you know that hadith thing, right? The mind comes back and forth outside. So he gets the spirit to struggle. If there's a snake, there's something in the house.
In Islam it's okay to touch a woman.
No.
That's just
was that sexual harassment? I wasn't. Don't hit me. You apologise.
What to do about nothing?
And I said, give you, let it go. Right. So I'm just saying, why can't we give that man the benefit of the doubt that he's done it unintentionally? He's apologised. Let it go. He didn't want to harm the women, did he?
Can I clarify?
Absolutely.
I'm clarifying. Do you know how long this gentleman has been here?
I don't.
Shall I tell you?
Absolutely. Go.
Many years.
Okay.
Right. Because of his
Let's go over
interactions.
there. This is silly.
He interacts
Why something you can't touch on. That's why I study that. And what I like about that, they are solid. They have all sorts of religions.
You don't want to be abused.
They are. Yeah. I don't see nobody abusing
I know you go on that.
India was born in 1948. The Arab took it from there. His country is thousands of years old. He's a Muslim city. He says subservient now. No fucking more subservient than them.
Probably not. Maybe Jannah.
My problem isn't the words where there's an alternative, it's the words where there are alternatives. There's Arabic alternatives.
You and him. Do you know that Britain? No, hold on. No. You got to know. Britain, this country, during the Second World War, had 3 million soldiers. You know who were they? Muslims. Okay, I'm not joking with you. France. Had 1 million soldiers Muslims. 4 million Muslims. Germany, 100,000. Okay. Yes. Oh yes. This guy says no, it's not true. If you have a fucking dignity, you call Tunisian any Tunisian TV or any Tunisian radio, and you ask what I just told you. They will tell you the fucking truth. For your countries, because your population, your people are a bunch of fucking wanker and cowards, and so are your leaders. You don't have the fucking courage to tell a word of truth. Afghanistan, you grab the fucking wheel of the American aircraft and you can't tell me. Grabbing the wheel of the Indians, my friends. Okay, I personally have some fights with Indians. Okay, but I met Indians in California doing the fucking best jobs, and I'm not joking with you. I worked in the city for a few months, in the city of London. The most skillful fucking computer programmer are Indians, not fucking English, not fucking Muslim. Don't buy your ass. Don't buy your ass. They come from IIT India. They are taught by Indians, and India today manufactures the chip. Okay? Europe doesn't fucking manufacture. Muslims don't. No, they don't. Hey, Muslims. That's why he was talking about India. Despite India has got less Muslims, 200 million. Okay? More than his fucking country. No, it doesn't. No. No. I never seen an Indian. Which country you come from? No. You which country you come from? The Quran is actually in Syria. Do you know how many people are killed in Syria? Were they killed by the Israelis? Were they killed by the Indians? No, the Muslims killed. My friend, do you know who invaded Syria? Muslims invaded India. This? No, it does matter. It does matter. What you don't
No. Muslims. I don't think. I don't know. I tell you one thing. 30 years. All the people who claim to be Muslims are not Muslims according to me. Muslim is not an actor. No. Muslim is not an actor. Muslim. Someday he comes here. So did Iraq.
It's your country.
Who invaded Syria? Who invaded Syria? Who invaded? In Saudi Arabia, you know who they support?
Sorry, can I get the bike? Thank you.
I don't like India. I don't like India. No, they're dirty. I don't trust restaurant. Indian restaurant. No, honestly. Indian restaurant. I don't trust it. They hide.
Ah, that's what, yeah, that's there's so much money. They say.
They keep saying that.
I don't know, what's rich? I used to believe
that's what they say.
Yeah, I keep saying it. But it's obvious it wasn't rich now.
That man judge that he may not be judging. You got the word, but there's a spirit of religion. Jesus knows he's not going to accept for me, man, because of the that, but we need to set up a centre, man. A centre of worship. You do the Sabbath, don't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. All right. We meet up.
Yeah.
So it's easier
Take care. Go on the bus. Is this your bus? I get paid for my efforts.
Asked me to count 500 gold pieces.
Zero, bro. China. No, but it's still
stay there.
Because they don't do anything, right?
The best agriculture in the world are Israel. Irrigation, they do system irrigation, they just business or killing each other. You see that school at a shelter last time, the video of him, and he said that's famous. He's still alive, he lives in Qatar. There's a video of him, that guy, I published now, he removed this video. He said, and I was watching him, he said, why we are poor, Muslim are poor? And he gave examples. Like, if you got 3 women, and it's got sun, it's more
You've got 20% of the booty and the wives. Yes, you've seen.
Look, what I said to you, you couldn't contradict. I'm quoting your Bible.
Did that take away your human
Bible? You say that Mary is a sinner. I mean, you are not what? Listen. Everybody is a sinner except for Jesus. I know what it is, but that's me. I need to sin. I wash away sin. Sin is. He didn't start his ministry. He's God, but he's God. God needs to be baptized.
I'm God.
Oh, he's not God.
So look at it. Never see the finger of God.
That's the whole of your doctrine is built on this. No.
So the finger.
When you are the man said to him, good master, he said, what did he say to him? Why thou brought me good? For there is no one good except God.
Show like you're going through depression or something.
So God can't be a man. God can't be a man. God can't be. I'm going. What did he say to Mary Magdalene? I am going. What did he say to Mary Magdalene? Go and tempt the disciples. I'm going to my Lord, my Father, and your Father, my God, and your God. See. See, look, for us Muslims, how is he going to come the second time?
His name, father with the mask, I forget his name. The one with the camera, Muslim guy.
Sam Dawes.
Yeah.
You know, he knows.
He asked me to, he knows about it. He said come to Leicester Square on Friday. You can speak with some more Muslim, more knowledge of Islam, and they're going to convince you to return to Islam. I told him, listen, I listened to the most famous scholar of Islam, and like this guy, Huwaini, this guy, and they didn't convince me. How come
you making me think? Yeah. So I take the credit.
And the most famous scholar.
You know,
no, come, it's gonna convince you. Leave me alone.
And if it wasn't for me,
Muhammad Ali.
You played the part.
I played the biggest part.
But here's the thing about Muhammad Ali. He used to come speak his corner.
Yeah.
When the road.
But he got hammered so much he had to run away. Now he runs to Leicester Square because
See you in your shop with
You don't want to come.
I want to go and have debate with him. I don't want to do. And I want to prove him that he's a prophet in me. He's no prophet, man. But I just don't have time. I know he's Muhammad.
Right. So we'll say a little bit longer.
I know how they work. They get him paid.
Imagine.
You know how many princes you need in Saudi Arabia? 5,000. Saudi.
Prince?
Okay, they're rich.
5,000. They all take money from the government. They don't work. They don't have to,
all money.
Like 5,000. We don't count.
But there's a lot of poverty there as well. I mean, they tried to hide that, but there's a lot of poverty. There's a lot of poverty amongst the citizens, not amongst the 5,000. The citizens. So it means whatever you do, you've already been forgiven. So, and imagine imagine us being forgiven for the sins yet to come. It means we can rape, we can rob, we can steal, we can do whatever we want. And we've been forgiven before we've done it, so we can do what we want.
in the Bible, there's one slaves. And Jesus said to him that when he healed him, he said, your sins are forgiven. I think when the guy came to see him later, Jesus said to him afterwards that
go forward and sin no more?
Yeah, unless worse thing happens. So Jesus was actually praying. So look at the difference between that.
Yeah. You can't be forgiven for sins that you haven't done yet, because it means that I can rob a bank, I can rape, I can steal, I can kill, and I've already been forgiven before I've done it.
That's why the Muslims do a lot of they know as long as you're Muslim, it's going to have different. I used to believe that. And then I used to do things like a Muslim I wasn't supposed to do.
Sex and prostitutes back and just go straight to the just go straight to it and absorb it. Yeah. You remember me, man? Yeah, exactly. Intercede for me, say I touched you and I kissed you, you know.
They come here.
The west.
When they're to Saudi Arabia, they start praying because they know Allah is going to forgive them their sins. And every year does the same thing. And Allah forgive if you're serious. Can forgive your sin. Easy, man.
With him it was hard.
They needed someone with a British passport, so they used his passport to go buy the alcohol. So that they could, they drank it.
He banned alcohol, but he never banned slavery. I mean,
And pork, which there was no pork at that time in Saudi at that time, and he kept slavery.
but don't remember, the Quran says that alcohol was banned because it was created by Satan. What did the Muslims get in heaven? Alcohol.
That's the one before.
Huh?
No, because it was allowed sort of.
Yeah, but the final verse says alcohol and gambling are the works of Satan. That's why they're banned. It's 590, and then it's allowed in heaven.
Yeah, but it's just
You could have. No, but you can create it on earth, though. Muhammad said, it's more than that. No, but the thing is, you can create it on earth. Because he said, you've been wearing silk. Well, I could buy silk clothes. You have gold bracelets. Well, I could get gold bracelets. You've been reclining. Well, I can recline. You'll be in the shade. Well, I can be in the shade. Yeah. You have women. Well, I can pay for prostitutes.
You can have drink water.
Yeah. No, but you can wear silk. No, but the thing is, it's like.
the paradise in the Quran. In the Bible, already 600 years ago, New Jerusalem is already Christian. Well, they have the Quran. That's like 60% down.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many problems with it. I mean, for example, I mean, that's exactly right. Plus, it's a paradise strictly for men. The women get there, what do they do? You get to watch the men having sex. Men. Oh, thank you for telling me.
You have the size of your and you have the budget.
Plus the women are going to be good. Well, other than sex and someone, they're not a virgin. The idea is the feeling that they like, the feeling of break by. Yeah, but how can someone be a virgin? It's only because they like the feeling of having sex with virgins. It's so silly. And then the hadith said that after you've had sex with them, what they're going to say to you is, you are the best they've ever had. I hope so. I hope you haven't had anyone else, because you're supposed to be a virgin.
Like 70 years.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. Touch a picture, yeah. But it's all appealing to the lowest. Female friends.
It's still about knowledge code. So it's still up to this line.
Yeah, there's no joy. There's no joy. Yeah, that's guaranteed. Yeah, that's when they like going to war. That's when they like fighting. You know, if I die. Yeah. Chapter.
Is it among them?
Because of the witnesses, he said, the man said that she insulted you, and Muhammad said, okay, since she insulted me, then it's okay, there'll be no retribution of the God. So the blind man who kills his wife, because she's insulted Muhammad, he told her to stop it, he rebukes her to keep it going, and then he told Muhammad, then he kills her, then the next day, Muhammad and they go to the house, find out what happened, and then the man's frightened, and he told Muhammad, well, she insulted you, that's why I killed her. Muhammad said, okay then.
She was the mother of my children, and Muhammad says, do not be witnesses that her blood was shed. So in other words, he's tacitly agreed saying what he did because she criticized. No, the question I had was, if somebody criticised somebody else, should they be killed? When I said, well, obviously no, that's not a moral thing. If you criticise Muhammad, this is saying, your life is, your blood is worth it.
Even if he's not here to hear the insult, that's even worse. Because he wasn't even there to hear the woman, and he didn't even know.
I'm just going to ask this: Muslims either do they know about this, or do they? They do.
She happened earlier.
Would you say that morally good?
We love him. We love him more than
talking about people who are Muslims. I give you a good example.
Show me anywhere in the Quran, anywhere in the Quran where it says,
I know about two sons.
show me anywhere. That is his son. Allah said,
He was never and he told his father, he went to his father, he was having a chat with his father, and he told his father, I'm saying, I never saw you, but I always try to avoid you, I didn't want to fight you. You know, Abu Bakr said, he said, if I saw you that day, I would have killed you. I said, the moment I did not repeat that, I would change that mentality, make them so aggressive. And it's the number one thing. I like it as well. It's one of the Muhammad the one to the house of Abu Bakr. He was looking for Abu Even women, they can't even slap a woman. He did it. He did mistake. But he told this, don't say anything. Otherwise, people they can say, and when they hate women, I don't want any people to say that.
Well, now Islam came and you now God
in the Quran said,
but the Muslims hate, according to the Quran and Hadith, according to the Quran and Hadith,
Did they do it? Did they do it for the commands of their God? Because the Muslims are allowed to beat women according to Allah. They're allowed to have sex with slaves according to Allah. They're not allowed to be. There's a Quran like be honest.
You spoke of me having immoral wife rates, but not godly about it. I don't want that. He was more happy as well.
Dominating the conversation is speaking right. So you're describing something right now. So you want something some kind of situation. And since you're in the conversation, I was the one that said that you're testing the claim. So it's alright. I see you filming all the time.
Jesus, come, deal with it. He's the Son of God. Can you come?
Yeah.
My personal belief is studying the philosophy of Zarathustra. I consider the philosophy of Zarathustra distinct from the religion of Zoroastrianism. There's no academic consensus based on linguistics. They considered him 5,000 years old. So Pliny the Elder quotes a number of Greek philosophers, Eudoxus at the funeral of Plato. He was 500 years before the Trojan, 5,000 years before the Trojan War. So they consider him ancient. Most academics think that's probably just
Accept the challenge. Okay, show me where Allah said Allah has a spirit.
No, let me
Okay, so now he said, okay, wait. So another life, our spirit comes from you, Allah. So are we talking?
Sorry?
Wait.
Show me that transmission of ideas between
Show me the Quran. Show me the Quran.
In the Quran. Show me that your spirit is the Allah's
saying there are no other gods but me.
Show me in the Quran that your spirit is Allah's spirit. Let me see.
Which also happens to be the first time we're introduced to the Persian king for the first time. By name.
Allah's spirit.
No, Allah's spirit.
Exactly.
Allah's
Very in the form of a man. Systems about
I don't want to commit like the exact word fallacy, so he needs to say it in exactly this way. I'm not going to do that. But for example, in Exodus 15, Moses says to God, "Oh Lord, who is like you amongst the gods?" Or in the Ten Commandments, the first commandment where he says, "Thou shalt take no other gods but me." It's a failure to say there are no other gods. So this could be construed as like henotheism, where you fail to rule them out. You may not necessarily acknowledge their existence, but you fail to say they don't exist. However, in Isaiah 44, he says explicitly, there are no other gods but me, I'm the first and the last.
Alright, yeah, but the way I look at that, what God's saying in Exodus is because if you read in...
It's Moses saying that in Exodus.
Yeah, but what's saying is, a lot of times, God's actually explaining, and even sometimes saying, well, in Ezekiel a lot, that there's a point where it's saying that the idols, there's one verse where it says that idols are actually in their heart. So what God's acknowledging is that those gods are actually in their mind. So the way I see it, whenever God is saying that about other gods, he knows the gods are in their minds, but that's what he's referencing. He's not saying that.
Who's he talking to when he says that?
No, it's always me.
To Israel?
Yeah, he's talking to me.
I'm saying the reason why I asked whether who he's saying it to is because it's quite clear that he establishes himself as the only God for Israel. I mean, he's called the God of Israel. To a layperson, that says to me, well, if there's a God for Israel, is there a God for Canaan? Is there also a God for Egypt? Is there also a God for... See what I'm saying? When it's given that tribal specification, when it's the God of them, well then maybe those other people have a God too. And my understanding is that the further back you go in Israelite religion, the more it becomes clear that the Israelites consider their God as... Okay, as a local god or a tribal god, but they were gods for other. And being subjugated. Wait, if I were to believe that these things weren't written after the fact.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying that this is what the text says. I'm not trying to prove that that's the case.
I understand.
So I'm saying that's the difference between their belief and the belief of the other gods. Because you see, with the other people, they don't know
what the other gods were saying, or what the other people believe the gods were saying to them.
Well, it's just that like there's one instance where they have the Philistines. They, I don't know if they had to pray to Dagon, if they prayed to before the battle. But with their gods, they don't necessarily think they're going to win the battle.
how do we know that?
Well, no.
We only know what the Bible tells us.
Yeah, true.
But we don't have their take on it.
Yeah, I understand that. But that's, I'm just going by the impression. When they were going to fight, they said, one of the leader of the battle said, yeah, we should quit ourselves like men. So he's trying to encourage the men in the battle when they're going to fight the Israelites. But he didn't say anything like, oh, Dagon has guaranteed us victory. Whereas when Joshua speaks, Joshua, he will say things like that the victory is going to be guaranteed.
Yeah, I mean, I think we would need to consult the Canaanite text to know what their view was.
Yeah, I know.
But the biblical narrative doesn't suggest that their God promised them victory. That's they didn't believe it would.
Yeah, I'm not trying to prove what their history. This is just what I'm reading.
I understand. But like I mentioned, I recognise the first explicit statement in the voice of God, from God's perspective in the first person, coming out of the mouth of Isaiah in chapter 44, where he says, I am the first and the last. There are no other gods but me. Which is very soon followed by, and here is my shepherd Cyrus. So when I begin to connect dots, considering that there was no such statement from the perspective of God until this time, I wonder whether there is some transmission of ideas that correlates or coincides with the arrival of this new power from the East, and whether they brought these ideas with them and then infused them into Jewish thinking.
Yeah, I mean, you could come to that conclusion, but I suppose the problem we have now is that because of the state of the text that we're looking up, from the perspective of what my aim is, which is of course what's written in the Bible, and so this is still where I'm sort of concentrating on. And admittedly, I'm not really looking into the other beliefs because I'm seeing things that can correlate with what's in the Bible. So that's more what I'm trying to get more things that correlate.
I understand. Thanks very much for taking the time to explain. Thank you. How you doing? Have I greeted you today? Have I greeted you? I've seen you, but I didn't greet you.
Yeah, you were in on the floor.
In where?
Michael, you're right.
Chapter 5, verse 6.
I'm Cyrus, by the way.
John said what? I saw a lamp. And he had what? 7 horns.
Where?
7 eyes. They represent you. Jesus,
awesome
God
young man.
of the Bible. God of the Bible. Why? It says they represent.
So what are you talking about?
They represent who? The 7 spirits of God. God has how many spirits according to him? Yes. So according to him, his spirit is God. Is from God. God has 7 spirits. Is God.
Spirit of Allah is not identified as Angel Gabriel. He simply said that the Holy Spirit, the Ruach Qudus, was identified as Gabriel. However, that is not the case, because for example, even the Shia believe that the Ruach Qudus is an actual spirit and not an angel. Now, if you go to Surah 5, verse 110, it says this, paraphrase, remember
Have being
Flesh has spirit, right? Yeah. Exactly. So when you're saying we have more one, it's a full part in the flesh. You don't mean it's right? The words that we're using cannot fully comprehend God. The two parts of
If you want to be notified when I release any videos, then just click on subscribe, and then click on the bell, and select all. And so then you'll receive all of the notifications for when I release any videos. Israelites will return to take down Islam.